2010's Affordable Care Act barred insurers from capping coverage, canceling it retroactively, or turning away people with pre-existing conditions. Policies were required to help provide prescription drugs, maternity care, and hospitalization. These rules didn't apply to short-term plans usually utilized by people between jobs. The Trump administration hasn't been able to overturn the ACA, so last year Trump issued an executive order changing the definition of short-term from 3 months to a year. It's become clear how profitable this is for insurance brokers who can get away with selling plans light on coverage, leaving people with huge bills when they seek care. Back in June, Trump announced a new policy letting businesses pay up to $1,800 in tax-exempt funds to employees instead of providing comprehensive health care, meaning even more people will seek out insurance from brokers offering negligible coverage, bolstering an already lucrative market. Fewer than 100,000 people had short-term plans at the end of last year, and that number is estimated to jump to 600,000 this year. I'm worried. Black workers are disproportionately represented in low-paying service jobs like food service, retail, and call centers, where employers routinely bar employees from working full-time so they don't have to provide health benefits. Predominantly black and highly segregated cities like Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Chicago have huge racial gaps in life expectancy due to environmental hazards and lack of preventative health care. The continuing deregulation of health insurance coverage will impact the black community. If a new, quickly transmitted, and little understood virus like HIV were to pop up today, it would be extra detrimental because of junk insurance policies, though profitable for the companies that sell them. A lot of people were impressed with Killer Mike's passionate speech in response to Candace Owens and T.I. at the Revolt Summit, but I wasn't. Let's break down the viral 7-minute clip. Firstly, he answered T.I.'s question about when America was great for black Americans by speaking on the short-term successes of Reconstruction, a time when black women had few rights. He implored the crowd to do their research, name-dropping Thomas Sowell and Stokely Carmichael, which is insane because Stokely was a socialist who sharply criticized capitalism, and Sowell is a conservative economist who endorses lowering taxes and decreasing business regulation. Mike rightfully pointed out the redundancy of a two-party political system, demanding black people compose a 10-point plan to bring to politicians in exchange for support, but then he went on to say that if black people are 15% of the nation, we should be 15% of Wall Street executives, Hollywood execs, governors, and so forth. My issue with that is that making up a proportionate amount of an exploitative system is not progress.
Remember, America is always going to have a slave class.
Killer Mike simply championed black capitalism in front of a crowd, including the multimillionaire Sean We All Have 24 Hours in a Day Combs. It is clear that Killer Mike and other capitalists have a vested interest in becoming a part of the ruling class rather than destroying class inequality. By saying America will always have a slave class, do you even believe in the concept of revolution? He closed out his speech by saying, "Kill your master and get your own shit," which is simply a remixed version of conservatives when they're explaining why businesses shouldn't provide health care or living wages, or why they don't want to make welfare an effective way to leave poverty, aka the bootstrap narrative. Acquiring wealth and getting your own shit at the expense of a slave class, Killer Mike's words not mine, is not revolutionary. On the morning of September 14th, several drones attacked 2 major oil plants in Saudi Arabia, destroying up to 50% of the country's global supply of crude oil. Saudi Arabia has announced that these attacks will cut more than 5% of their global oil supply. Oil prices surged in the days following the attack, and even though it must be noted that now America produces about 12 times more oil than it imports from Saudi Arabia, and America produces 18% of the world's oil compared to Saudi Arabia's 12%, we would not be unaffected if attacks continued. American oil is harder to extract compared to Persian Gulf oil, and rising prices would be good for oil producers but costly for American gas consumers. A rebel group of Houthis in Yemen claimed responsibility for the attack, but a U.S. official blamed Iran, which of course they denied. America is Saudi Arabia's informal ally, and Trump has said America is locked and ready to retaliate, though no official obligations exist. The Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif tweeted, "The U.S. isn't upset when its allies mercilessly bomb babies in Yemen for over 4 years, with its arms and its military assistance. But it is terribly upset when the victims react the only way they can, against the aggressor's oil refineries." Trump has continually gone against bipartisan congressional majorities by supporting Saudi Arabia's murder of an outspoken journalist and its war on Yemen. Backed by the US, the UK, and France, Saudi Arabia has been bombing Yemen since 2015 to take back power from Shia Muslim Houthis and claims Iran is supporting the Houthis, which they deny. This conflict has caused at least 8.4 million to be at risk of starvation and 75% of the population to need humanitarian assistance. 4 of Trump's 5 total vetoes to the Republican Senate have been for congressional attempts to slow down down U.S. assistance to Saudi Arabia, including sales of weapons, sparking questions about Trump's own financial ties to Saudi Arabia. People love e-cigs, particularly Juul, which has taken over 68% of the e-cig market share. Juul built up its mainly young customer base by claiming they were safer than cigarettes and could help adult smokers stop smoking, using the tagline, "Make the switch." They had reps go to high schools to discuss mental health and addiction issues, and during one presentation that was addressed at a congressional hearing in July 2018, a representative claimed Juul products were totally safe. Juul has since stopped its school programs, but the FDA warned them to stop marketing their products as safe smoking alternatives because no vapes have been proven to be safer than cigarettes in the long term. However, British medical authorities have concluded that e-cigarettes are at least 95% safer than tobacco cigarettes. E-cigs have been on the American market for over 10 years, but the FDA didn't get the authority to regulate them until 2016. At least 7 people have died from vaping, and over 450 have been diagnosed with severe lung diseases linked to vaping. So Trump announced last week that he plans to ban non-tobacco flavored vapes, leaving many to wonder why he can't do the same thing with guns or regular tobacco. There's little evidence that nicotine vaping has contributed to deaths or illness. Instead, the evidence gestures to an oil derived from vitamin E added to marijuana vaping pens often sold on the black market. Millions use commercial e-cigarettes without reporting respiratory problems, so why ban these products? If non-tobacco flavored e-cigs get banned, that means more black market flavored liquids with risky ingredients, and it also means an increase in smoking tobacco. Under Trump's new proposed ban, this sounds like a big win for big tobacco. The Sackler family owns Purdue Pharmaceuticals, one of the major companies that pushed opioids at Americans in the late 90s through the 2000s. They earned their billions through their aggressive marketing and pushing of OxyContin. Over 400,000 Americans have died from opioid addiction-related illnesses, and Purdue is now claiming that their main priority is to end the opioid crisis. Sackler family members have offered to turn over the company to a trust that would use future earnings for opioid treatment and said they would give up a large portion of their profits from OxyContin. On Sunday night, Purdue announced it was filing bankruptcy and that they were planning to ask a judge to issue an injunction to stop various state attorneys general from suing the Sackler family, who they claim are entitled to a shield from litigation. Currently, 24 states and thousands of local governments have agreed to Purdue's $3 billion settlement terms, but the other 26 states demand more. North Carolina AG Josh Stein said of the Sackler family, they are trying to use bankruptcy to shield their assets. By declaring bankruptcy, Purdue gets to avoid a slew of once-planned trials in counties across the country. It must be nice to be so rich that you can avoid crippling debt and jail time for wrongdoing by throwing a small percentage of your wealth to a problem to make it go away. Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey said, the current settlement doesn't hold the Sacklers personally accountable. The judge who will respond to Purdue's injunction request will decide if the various state attorneys general are being greedy and looking for more money, or if they're protecting other public interests.